This is SBR's Football Betting Daily.
What up, football fans? It is Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, October 19th, and you are watching The Audible. My name is Jimmy the Bag, and I'm joined by, alongside, as always, the legend, Donnie Rightside. Donnie, it's Friday. I loved our Tuesday show. I'm ready to get to work, and I love working with you. How you feeling today, Donnie?
Doing good, man. Practice reports coming in, line movements, line changes since the last time we spoke here on Tuesday. Always a fun show here on Friday. Let's see if we can make the people some money. Get that information out there, Jimmy. Let's have some fun.
Let's have some fun. The Whale Capper will also be joining us. We have Vitalis in the house, Ole Miss, Anna Marak D from Detroit, Kyle Jack, Crypto Boss, Anil Frank. Some great cappers with us right now. Let's get to work. We have a lot of games to cap, and we know our colleague and good friend Whale Capper likes to talk about these games for extended minutes, and we love every second of it. Don't get me wrong, we love every second of it, but Donnie and I need to get through these games so we can allow Whale Capper to wax poetically on these games. I'm ready to get to work. Donnie, let's start in London. Titans at Chargers. Open Chargers -7. Then there were -6.5s on the board on Tuesday. Still 6.5s and some 7s are back up. Total open at 45. It's pretty much stayed the same. There were some 45.5s on Tuesday. Now it's just 45s across the board. We saw the Chargers put it all together last week against the Browns. You talked about their travel plans, how they didn't go back to LA. They stayed in Cleveland, and then went straight over to London from there. They lost Kaiser White. He had his knee scoped. This Titans team looks awful. Why? Their O-line is deplorable. Delaney Walker injuries turned out to be devastating. Mariota went 10 for 15 for 117 yards. Derrick Henry, Dion Lewis are doing nothing. Tennessee converted 1 of 10 third down chances against Baltimore. Their offense ranks 30th overall with an average of 262.7 yards. They're rushing for 98.5 yards per game. That's not the production we expected from Lewis and Derrick Henry. Conversely, LA ranks in the top 10 in both total offense and points. Rivers last week did not have to put up video game numbers because the rushing attack was looking so good. And that makes this team excellent. I really feel like if he doesn't need to risk all over the field and Eckler can roll and Gordon can roll, this Chargers team is very tough to beat. Titans at Chargers, London, England. Let's start here, Donnie. What are you thinking?
Yeah, too, a lot of coming into the season, you thought Tennessee would be a pretty good football team. They were tending to play people a lot closer than what you would have thought, like the Buffalo Bills game, just straight up losing that game. But last week, you don't like to take a look a lot of what just happened and let your eyes deceive you, but it's pretty hard to take away where Ravens team just said, we're going to get after you. We're going to sack your quarterback 11 times. You're going to be completely inept on offense and not even force the other team to even have to push the envelope to beat you by 3 touchdowns. Now you're going to go on the road. Look, it's not a true road game for either team, but you talked earlier, Jimmy, about the travel situation. I like that the Chargers had a game plan for this, didn't fly back to L.A. and then all the way back across country and across the pond. They did have a game plan going into it. It's hard for me to take a team like the Tennessee Titans because you're going to need to score some points here if you're going to be in the game versus the Chargers. What's the one thing we like about the Chargers this year, Jimmy, and the same as last year? They play every game on the road. They're probably going to think it's a dream if they even have 20,000 fans overseas cheering for them when they get a first down. It's going to be like a miracle. In this game, I'm looking forward to the Chargers. But again, I haven't bet a game overseas in a couple years. I'm not about to get into it now because you're going to be laying close to 6.5, 7. But it's either going to be me making a case for the Chargers in this one, or I'm just going to lay off. I'm just not inspired by Tennessee. You can play all the close games you want. But if you're going to tell me coming in this game, you're going to score like 13, 14 points, you're going to get waxed in this game by the Chargers.
Yeah. Crypto Boss saying the same thing, Chargers or nothing here. Tom Marino saying the Titans can't stretch the field, Walker out, Mariota banged up. Titans secondary is horrible. Butler has been the worst free agent signing in football. My man Jim Tobleson says, crush the over. I capped this game, Chargers 30, Titans 22. What do you think about the total here at 45?
Yeah, usually when you look at the Chargers for me, Jimmy, they're always an over team because they have a good offense. They're not that great on defense, but the one team that seems to be like the ultimate under team is Tennessee at this point. But look, if you're looking at some of these games that go overseas, that they tend to go, I guess, a little bit higher scoring than not. You're looking at 45 points. I would think Tennessee would be able to wake up and put some points on the board. A little lean toward the over 45 here for me, Jimmy.
Yeah, maybe that is the move. I didn't know what to do. I was uncomfortable laying all these points, and that's what Anthony L is saying right here. He's saying 6.5 points on a neutral field. This is a huge overreaction. Put the Chargers in a teaser, but don't lay the touchdown. I'm uncomfortable. Now, I made a parlay on the Low Check in the Bag parlay show. I hit last week, got off the schneid. I have the Chargers money line involved in the parlay. I just feel uncomfortable with this amount of points. I know you've already touched on a lot of this, but is that fair? Is this an overreaction like Anthony L is saying, Donnie?
I think it is a little bit of an overreaction because if you look at the way Tennessee has played all their games, Jimmy, outside of last week, which is why I always say, like, it's hard to not look at last week, even though you shouldn't just say, well, that's the type of team they are, as opposed to take a look at the whole book of plays that they've had this year. Their tendency to play everybody close, if you're betting Tennessee, is exactly what you want, because if they're going to be in the football game, they might be able to hang within the 6.5, or hell, even win the game outright. Last week was such a damaging performance that everything you question, you're right. This is a neutral site. This isn't like they're going to play the Chargers, even though there is no home field advantage, but they're not technically on the road in this game and getting a touchdown. So it's a good point by the chat box.
Yeah, Anthony L, my guy, great low bagger. I am excited to be here, and some of these games I am so excited to break down further. And this one, Donnie, I can't wait. I also can't wait to hear what our man Whale Capper has to say about this. This could be the most exciting game of the weekend. Patriots at Bears. Open Patriots -2.5. Then when we did our show on Tuesday, money started coming in on the Patriots. It got to 3. It got to 3.5. And then we saw that U-shaped curve back to 2.5. Total opened at 50. We had 49.5s on Tuesday. Now 48s across the board. This is very exciting to me. We have our guy, Capper John, who it works at Soldier Field, gives us these great Chicago updates. I hope he joins us on the show today. Mac looks like he's at 85%. A lot of people, when I brought that up, had said his 85% is 120% of everybody else. But the injury is going to slow him down. We saw that last week. It was his first week without a sack. They have a ton of other injuries, too. A ton. Cornerback Marcus Cooper hasn't practiced. Missed practice Wednesday. He's questionable. Amma Kamara, questionable. Brian Callahan, Kevin Tolliver, Allen Robinson, all these guys, questionable. And then the Patriots. Will they be able to fire up their engines again this week? When this line came out, a ton of people thought, wow, this is the market begging us to take the Patriots. I've heard a lot of sharps say the Bears are the play here. I can't wait to hear your breakdown on this game, Donnie. What are you liking?
Yeah, you missed out on the number if you're looking to take the Chicago Bears, which I'm one of those guys that missed out. But sometimes you would rather wait to make sure it's the right scenario that you're looking for. Because when we talked earlier on Tuesday, if everything was right here, let's just say healthy versus healthy, I really like the Chicago Bears, because the one thing I liked is you need to create a hot pocket for Tom Brady, not to eat there in the microwave, but get him off his points. And Khalil Mack was going to be the perfect person to do so. Now he's missing practices. Now he's going to be questionable. How much you're going to get? That is a huge disadvantage. It's not a D tackle. It's not a linebacker, a safety out of the football game. One of the key components to why I like the football game is now going to be a little bit banged up. But if you're just looking at the New England Patriots, look, they are getting a little bit healthier. They're getting their offense back in gear, but you can only go with what they've done this year. They played 2 road games when absolutely destroyed in both of those games. So as much as we say we like to see how well they do, look, they always play well in Foxborough. Whether or not they win or blow a team out, it's hard to go in the Foxborough and beat Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, and the New England Patriots. It's apparently not that hard to beat them on the road, because Detroit absolutely destroyed them. Jacksonville embarrassed them on the road. And now you're going to go play a hungry football team that was embarrassed the week before. As much as we liked last week the Miami Dolphins in the spot they're in, Chicago Bears are in that same sort of spot here, in more of a must-win situation, fresh off an embarrassment at home against a team that doesn't play well, or at least this year doesn't play well on the road. But I need a healthy and active pass rush out of the Chicago Bears. They want to pull this upset.
So would you say wait get more information on Mac?
He's going to go. I mean, there's no way in the world. Like, I would be hard-pressed to say we wake up Sunday morning, Jimmy, and you're down in Costa Rica making some coffee, and they're like, hey, Khalil Mack's just not going to go today. Like, this is a big game. This is what you pay athletes for, and they want to play in this game. I just hope he's effective. And I'm going to bet on saying that they'll tape it up, he'll get going, he'll be effective in this game. So if you like the Chicago Bears, the only point is now is why take the Bears now? You're more likely to get a +3 to me than you would a +2 on Sunday. So if you're taking the Bears, hold off. Because if it goes to 2 or 1, you might as well take it because you're going to need to have the win outright anyway. But I would advise holding off if you like it. You might even see that 3 come back, and then you'd be more comfortable with the Bears.
I like that. That's great insight. And Capper John is joining us. Love this guy. Says he's on the Bears +3. Weather will be clear. Dom Ricci, a very interesting point. Man, I love Dom. Says maybe this week we can put the Bears hype to rest like we did with Cleveland last week. Do you think their pitiful performance in Miami against Osweiler is a sign of the future? Or you think they get, I guess from your breakdown, you expect them to step up and step up after that terrible showing?
Yeah, even though, look, they lost the game, but if you watch the game overall, you had one dumb throw by Osweiler that really changed things when they were going to go up double digits in that game and probably hunker in and win it. They didn't play that well in the first half, but it was only 7-0. Osweiler throws a couple interceptions. Next thing you know, the Bears are in full control. Now, the one thing that we know that Miami can do, similar to like a Kansas City, throw a slant pass and go 80 yards with it. That's not really the MO of the New England Patriots. You're not going to throw, a ball to Edelman across the middle, and he's going to typically take it 75 or 80 with that speed burst that they like to have. So a little bit different components in this football game, but I love the fact they lost. I thought the Bears played a much better game and probably should have won the football game in that second half, but they didn't, which is great for us gamblers because most people say, Bears lost to the Dolphins, Patriots coming to town, easy no-brainer. Look more inside the numbers here. I still think the Chicago Bears are in a really good spot here, Jimmy.
I've heard that from a few people, and I'm so excited about this game, but don't have a play
It's a fun
on
one. Yeah.
either the side or the total. What do you think about the total? It's moved down to 48 from an opening of 50.
Yeah, look, I'm still going to lean on a little bit more points than not. It's still Tom Brady back there. He's got a lot of weapons that he can use, and the Chicago Bears should be able to move the football. And then the New England defense, after they have the components that they can attack, would be nice if Allen Robinson was going to be healthy for this football game. But you get Miller back last week, another swift wide receiver. So I think there's more likely to be points than not in this game, Jimmy.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. I'm so excited about this game. Troy V says Pats use September basically as a training camp to see what they got. They're in full swing now. Pats for me. We know Anthony L's on the Pats. That Fire TV is on the Pats. Vital says you don't get rich betting against the Patriots. Wow, this is as exciting as football games get. I can't wait for 1 o'clock, and I can't wait to hear Capper John's updates. Capper John works at Soldier Field, Donnie. We get these up to the date.
Yeah, we're going to have the long grass. Yeah, he needs to let us know. Like, are we cutting the grass there? Or, like, what are we doing over there? Because I've seen it before. So I'm sure he has that information for us.
He does, and we absolutely love getting it. So shout out to my man, Capper John. He will let us know. I follow him on Twitter. You guys should too. He gives us up-to-the-minute information working at Soldier Field. Isn't that such a fun thing about all our great cappers in the chat? We get all this inside information, and goddamn, I love it. I love it. I love it.
There's a guy, Kyle Honeysett, comes in the chat box a while. He's a field crew guy for Detroit. It's always hilarious. You get those little updates like, hey, wind's blowing out, which is great because if you were looking at one little dynamic there, that thing can tilt it. So good for the chat box, man. Information is king, man. Use it.
Absolutely. And Capper John laughing, saying the grass will be short. Browns.
All right, there we go.
Browns at Buccaneers. Open Bucks -3. It was -3 on Tuesday. Now -3.5. The total keeps creeping up. It opened at 48.5, then got to 49.5 on Tuesday when we did our show. Now there's 51s, and I'm telling you, Donnie, I am thinking about making a move on the under. I'm not letting the market dissuade me at this point, although you and the cappers in the chat have the ability to dissuade me. Tampa Bay Bucs fired their defensive coordinator, Mike Smith. Now linebackers coach Mark Duffner will serve as the interim defensive coordinator. Generally speaking, that gives teams a bit of a boost. I'm looking forward to hear what you have to say on that. Mayfield coming off a bad game, 22 for 46, threw 2 picks. This team still picked up 100 yards plus on rushing. We talked about how the Chargers destroyed them on the ground. The Browns allowed 246 yards on the ground. I'm sure the Buccaneers saw that. Their defense has problems. Middle linebacker Scobert, James Burgess dealing with hamstring injuries. Winston looked good against the Falcons. I don't trust Winston at all. He goes 30 for 41 with 4 TDs, throws 2 picks, but that's against just a beaten up secondary missing huge pieces. I am nervous that the Browns allowed so many yards on the ground and the Buccaneers are missing Hargraves and Conte for the rest of the year. I am nervous about that, but I feel like this total is a little bit too high. Can't wait to hear your breakdown on this game, Donnie. Browns at Buck.
Yeah, it's hard to take an under just we hear the names like Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or you hear Kansas City Chiefs, you hear the Atlanta Falcons. So it's always tough, but I think you're on to something here, a little bit of value-wise, now creeping over at the 51. The MO of the Cleveland Browns, I mean, we did see the Raiders game. They got into a shootout. They couldn't stop the Raiders at all, which, a similar type of offensive style to me would be the Tampa Bay Bucs to what the Raiders have. Extremely dynamic. Home run hitter Deshaun Jackson, decent wide receiver in Godwin, Humphreys over the middle, and then you're going to have the ultimate killer in Mike Evans on one side with a super athletic tight end over the middle. They're going to score points on the Cleveland Browns. The only question I have is, when you try to match up teams against each other, I don't know how well Cleveland's offense matches up against Tampa Bay, because what Cleveland wants to do is be a more balanced attack, move the chains. But the way you get after Tampa Bay's defense, as you saw last week with Atlanta, start throwing punts down there, launch that ball 50 yards down the field at a 90-degree angle so it's up there, and let your wide receivers come down and under it. That's just not what Cleveland does on offense. I mean, Jarvis Landry's a nice wide receiver who they overpaid in the offseason and gives great quotes and is fantastic theater on TV, but he needs to start stepping up his game and scoring some touchdowns for the Cleveland Browns to make his payments worthwhile. Now you trade Carlos Hyde on a Friday. Look, he's not the end-all, be-all type running back, but now you're down another weapon in the backfield. More Duke Johnson going to be out there. Nick Chubb, who is a young player, who's now going to see more and more increased playing time. Maybe he doesn't pick up a blitz call. That happens. Gerald McCoy is going to be out for Tampa Bay, which is a key injury because he's one of the better defensive tackles in the league. I just think Tampa Bay matches up really well with Cleveland here. That line opened up, at -3? Now you're seeing 3.5. I agree with that move. To me, in this game, it's Tampa Bay or nothing. Just not a high seller or a high buyer on the Cleveland Browns. You're asking them to go on the road and win this football game when I don't think they match up very well with Tampa Bay.
Anthony L saying the same thing. Are we done pretending the Browns might be good? Rookie quarterback on the road with Hugh Jackson coaching. Give me the Bucks. Quinn Rivera saying Bucks missing 3D linemen, I think. We talked about McCoy being out. Crypto Boss mentioning that. We knew what we talked on Tuesday, that he'd left the game with a calf injury and his status is unknown. I guess with all these injuries, maybe and that would explain the market move to the total that everyone's looking at all these injuries. I just have a feeling that this game won't be as explosive as we imagine it could be. Dom Ricci's on Tampa Bay -3, Tampa Bay team total over and the under 49.
Oh, how about that? Risky. Yeah. I like that. Good for you, Dom.
That's very interesting. Well, that makes me feel a little better. And you did nothing to dissuade me, which usually means I feel like I'm on the right spot, even though the market, I feel like NFL market moves don't put the fear in me like NBA market moves. Do you feel that one sport is a little more dangerous as market moves, or is that sort of a gray area?
Yeah, no, because the NFL, you're getting it all week long, Jimmy. So you can sort of settle in and sort of get the reasoning behind it. When you bet baseball and you bet the NBA, it's a one-day sport. So when you see a market move, it's almost like you have to get on Twitter and online and be like, is somebody out? What did I miss in this football game? Where you could disseminate the information as the week goes on. But from your over-under total perspective, Jimmy, like what's more likely to happen here? New Orleans, 21-18. The Jets, 21-17. You had the outlier with Oakland. I mean, I don't even know how you take any Oakland games. That was a high-scoring shootout. You get back to playing Baltimore 12-9. Then you only score 14 points last week and look pretty anemic against the Chargers, who hang 38 on you. So that game actually only got up to, 52 points? You're not looking at, outside of that Raiders game, an offensive juggernaut that Cleveland just pushes the ball up and down the field. I think you have the right mindset here, Jimmy, in that under 51 or under 50 spot.
I like hearing that a lot. Let's keep rolling. Lions at Dolphins. This was on the board at one book, and now it's across the board on all the books. It opened at Bet Online at Lions -1, quickly went to -3 across the board. The total opened at 47. Now they're 46.5 off across the board. We know the Lions coming off a bye, and I expect Patricia's game plan to be on point. Couple things to talk about. One, TJ Lang on track to return to action after missing the game against the Packers. Also, Ziggy Ansah might return to action. They need him very badly. 12 sacks last year. He's a big difference maker. I feel like there's no possible way Brock Osweiler is capable of another game like he had last week, especially when Patricia has time to plan to attack him. He was a beast last week. Frank Gore was also very, very good last week. Albert Wilson was Brock Osweiler's main connection. That shocked me as well. 6 passes for 155 yards. I was surprised that Frank Gore and Kenyon Drake were able to put up the numbers that they did with Sitton and Kilgore out on the front line. I don't expect that either to happen again this week. And defensively, Cam Wake, Bobby McCain, both out with knee injuries. I like the Lions here. I like them quite a bit. I'm very close to making a move on the Lions. I do not trust Brock Osweiler and can't wait to hear your breakdown on this game, Donnie.
No, I think you're right, Jimmy. I think you're right on exactly how you should be reading this football game. You're almost sitting in the same exact scenario, right? A better football team, one would think, the Detroit Lions coming off a bye, laying 3 points here. You saw the same thing last week with the Chicago Bears. 3 goes to 7. Osweiler comes out and plays it. Look, sometimes you have to throw out a little bit of stats. Did Brock Osweiler play a little bit better? Yes. The Bears got banged up in that football game right away. It's 90-degree temperatures, and we like the spot that the Miami Dolphins were in last week. Now take a look at this one. Brock Osweiler, king of the world. Played way above his head, more likely to come back down to earth. The rested and ready Detroit Lions. I think you're going to get some pretty competent quarterback play out of Matthew Stafford. And if you just hold the 3rd and 7, 2-yard slant that goes for 80 yards a few times in the game, if you're the Detroit Lions, you're going to end up winning this football game. You're not going to get a dumb rookie mistake like Mitch Trubisky throwing into the end zone where he just needed a field goal and ends up with an interception. I think Matthew Stafford's going to be able to move the football in this game. And you're right. The whole capping analysis from my end here is I don't think Brock Osweiler can throw for another 300-yard game. And look, they're going to set the line. They're telling you right now, Detroit -3. Hey, man, wait a second. Osweiler was amazing last week. They beat the Chicago Bears. I think the Chicago Bears are better than Detroit. I'll just take the 3. That's the way they want you to think on this football game. But I think Detroit's overall the better team. Brock Osweiler is going to come back down to earth, and I think Detroit's going to win the game and win it by more than 3 points and get the cover.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Total opened at 47, slightly down to 46.5. What are you thinking with the total here?
Yeah, total's an interesting one because if I think Brock Osweiler is going to come down in this game and not get the 80-yard slant passes that he got a couple times last week, it seemed, I think you're more likely to see an under in this game than you would an over. 47, 46.5. Maybe Detroit plays a little bit of more ball control in this game. Maybe not so many home runs from Miami's side. I'm more likely to see an under. Again, we're looking at Brock Osweiler, quarterback. He goes for 350 again and like 3 scores. I'll just say, you know what? I was completely wrong on this cap, but I'm not too sure he can do it back-to-back weeks here, Jimmy.
I find it almost impossible to believe he can do it. 380 yards, the 31 points scored was the highest for an Osweiler-led team in his career. I find it very hard to believe. But one thing I absolutely love about sports is these guys that are kind of down and out and looked down upon rising to the occasion. So I'm from a fan perspective, great job, Brock Osweiler. From a gambling perspective, I'm going to make money off you failing this week. Panthers at Eagles. When we talked on Tuesday, I was leaning towards making a play on the Eagles, and I become more and more uncomfortable as the day goes on. The line was -4.5, -4s. Then now it's -4.5s and then -5s. Total opened at 45, got up to 45.5 on Tuesday. Now we've seen a move towards the under at 44.5. Panthers coming off their loss to the Redskins. I just feel like Newton has a way of getting points late, keeping his teams close. That concerns me with the Eagles. Also, the Eagles just beat up a bad football team. I might have been taking too much about Peterson having the extra days to prepare. I'm looking forward to hearing an update. I know you have these updates on like Jason Peters, because when we did the show before the Tuesday show, I thought he was going to be out. I thought maybe he'll return this season, and then you said that maybe he'll be back on Sunday. I can't wait to hear about that. The Skins were able to shut down McCaffrey. I'm not sure if the Eagles are able to do that. Pomarino here saying Clement back is big for the Eagles. Panthers run defense struggles. Eagles need to run to take pressure off the offensive line. Panthers' offensive line sucks. Eagles should get the pressure. And America says, I can't trust the Panthers. Eagles should roll. Can't wait to hear your breakdown on your hometown Eagles.
Yeah, spot play, it's a pretty good spot for the Philadelphia Eagles, but you're hoping to get at least some good information, Jimmy, or not negative information coming back, because when you look at the way, even before they played the Giants, I'll circle in my wagon. So, I haven't bet an Eagles game yet this year, Jimmy, but I really like the Eagles in this spot. Let's just see if they can pull through the Giants game and see what happens, because you knew Carolina was going to be on the road that Sunday playing a tough, NFC East opponent in the Washington Redskins, who tend to play decent at home. They end up winning that game, but the Eagles, the hurt bicep for Jason Peters, he's going to play in this football game because I guess it's an apparent injury where you don't have to use it that much, or it was the right type of bicep tear that he has as opposed to one that needs surgery and quit. And also Jason Peters is at the end of his career, so I'm pretty sure that if he was a 26-year-old, he'd probably get surgery. I'll see you next year, but he doesn't have that many games left to play. Lane Johnson still recovering from a high ankle sprain. We'll see how that plays out in the game. And always the late practice reports come out, and Jalen Mills gets added to the injury report with a hamstring. He did end up practicing today, so it looks like he's going to be good to go. But we all know a hamstring injury, once it's a little bit tweaked or pulled, he might play 3 or 4 plays, go on the sideline, and you're already down Sidney Jones, your top first-round pick from the year before, who hurt his hamstring in the Giants game. So you are a little bit depleted, but you're still sitting in a pretty decent spot. Should be some winds down there at Lincoln Financial Field this weekend, coming in anywhere from 15 to 20 miles an hour, so the kicking game might get a little bit squirrely there. But you're going to see a good competitive physical football game. I just think the Eagles match up pretty well overall with the Carolina Panthers. Neither one of these teams wants to go, deep quick. So Jalen Mills, the one thing he does like to bite on is the double move from a fast wide receiver. Devin Funchess is more likely the guy that he would guard. 2 big guys. I mean, obviously Funchess is a lot bigger than Mills, but that's the type of wide receiver he can keep up on. We'll see how much we get out of Olsen. A little bit gimpy still last week versus the Washington Redskins. Will the Eagles come into this game a little bit extra rest here versus the Panthers? If you're only going to be laying 4, 4.5, 5 in that spot, I always had the Eagles pegged for winning by 7 points in this game as is. I'm going to stick to that, even though I wanted Darren Sproles back for this game. They're still going to keep him out, but Corey Clement's going to be back a little bit healthier. It should be a really competitive football game, but I think the Eagles have the edge in this one, rested and ready, need this game at home. I think they get the job done and win by 7.
Interesting. I like hearing it. I've been getting more concerned as the days move on. Great to see Drew Martin in the chat. Shout out to my man, Drew. I have some legitimate, serious interest in the over in this game. I feel like Hamd is just capable of putting up points. I'd be curious to hear what you think about that and what your expectation is on McCaffrey against this Eagles defense.
No, he's gonna get his yards. I mean, they have a pretty good cover lineman. Nigel Bradham's not the greatest cover linebacker, but Hicks in the middle should be able to do a decent job. But who'll get his 7, 8 to 9 touches outside of the backfield from just getting carries? The only thing that makes you a little bit leery is a lot of these big stadiums, Jimmy, they're insulated, fully round, and you might get some swirling winds, but not that bad, even if it's windy outside the stadium. The Eagles did put up a little bit more seating over the past couple years to sort of enclose that bowl, but it is sitting in an area of South Philadelphia that we like to call Point Breeze, and on Sunday we're looking at about 20 mile an hour, and that's sustained winds. That's not really like, it might gust a little bit there. They're calling for 17, 18 mile an hour winds, which means it could probably gust into the 20s. That might affect the kicking game, but then again, Jimmy, both of these teams aren't built on just going up top and deep, or like maybe the New Orleans Saints or maybe the Kansas City Chiefs might get a little bit more affected by that. Both of these teams are more intermediate pass route type squads, so I don't know how much that's going to come into. And look, we're only looking at 45, 44.5 as an over-under. More likely to go over than stay under to me.
That's what I think as well. Tomore says Eagles' weakness is deep passing. We know that Carolina does not stretch the field. Is this work?
He's right.
Does it work perfectly in the Eagles' favor? This situation where all of the offense seems to be getting McCaffrey out to the flanks. Is this all working out for the Eagles here? Because I don't see anybody coming in saying, I like the Panthers here.
Yeah, no, he's right. He's right. Because when you say, I always like to use styles make fights here. What do you want to take advantage of? Which Cleveland, I'm not so sure they can really take advantage of Tampa Bay secondary like an Atlanta Falcons could. It's the same way here. This isn't one of those teams that's going to have, 3, 4 wideouts. Now, Torrey Smith can get deep, but that's not really what the MO of Cam Newton is. He's more likely to throw the ball 15 yards over the middle or throw it out to the flat or, some RPO stuff. So he is right when he brings up a point there. you're not really going to get after the Eagles going deep. You're not just going to change your stripes and say, you know what? Instead of throwing the intermediate routes and dumping off out of the backfield, let's just go vertical all game long. That's not going to take place in this one. And again, those winds, 17, 18, 19 miles an hour, we know as well as anything, Jimmy, you have one step on the cornerback, you need a perfect throw. Wind creeps up, blows the ball left or right, incomplete, interception, or just goes out of bounds. That might have an effect if these guys try to go vertical in this football game.
Yes. Great breakdown. Love talking about your Eagles. Well, I am extremely excited to welcome back Whale Capper to our show. Let me tell you, Whale Capper, in the short amount of time I've got to know you, I've enjoyed your company enormously, enjoyed your breakdowns, and love having you a part of the show. You were missed last week. It's not the same without seeing you in your beautiful locales. It's not the same sitting here being jealous of wherever you are. Welcome back to the show, Whale Capper.
Jimmy, thank you so much for having me, and I couldn't agree with you more. I love getting to talk to you guys every week. This is the best part of my week.
Oh, wonderful. Great to have you back. We're going to move on to the games that we haven't hit yet, but is there any game that we've touched on early that you wouldn't mind talking about or stating a feeling on anything?
I pretty much agreed with everything. This is good or bad, I guess, but we're on the same page. Pretty much.
Let's meet up in Vegas this weekend. Let's go.
Yeah, man. It's a small card with a couple extra teams on bye, so you got to pick your spots. Pretty excited about the way that game played out yesterday. I had Broncos sold out to -2.5. I could have sold out to -42.5, and that would have made it, or 32.5 would have made it. So that was nice. Always fun to get a win on Thursday, get you started 1-0 on the week, and so looking for another winning week here. It's been a nice little run here last couple weeks, just stacking units. It's really loving the way the board is shaping up and seeing things pretty well right now. So let's go.
Yes, we have noticed that you've been very good of late. And so did the Cappers in our chat when you weren't around last week to give us your glory. But you're back! And then a hero comes along with the strength to carry. Okay, let's get to work. Bills at Colts. On Tuesday, the market was all over the place. You could have got the Colts from anywhere from -6.5 to -9. Now the market has settled at -7.5, although there are a couple -7s. The big story here, Derek Anderson announced as the starter. Anderson has a major challenge on his hands. Buffalo averages 12.7 points per game. Bills passing game, 123 yards per game. But this Colts team, 26th in NFL against the pass, 30th in points allowed. But, they have a very good pass rush. Third in the NFL with 19 sacks. Hunt and Leonard share the team lead with 4 sacks apiece. But they got guys that they can bring all over the place. They have a lot of depth there at getting at that quarterback. Frank Reich is optimistic that T.Y. Hilton will be back in the lineup. Andrew Luck, to me, is getting better every week in and week out. I'm really happy that I'm seeing that. Leads the NFL in pass completion, second with 16 TDs, but 8 interceptions. This Bills team ranks third in the league in yards allowed, tied for third in sacks. Defensive end Jerry Hughes looking dominant out there. Why don't we start with you, Whale Capper? Bills at Colts.
Well, this is a wild one. I can't recall a time in recent years where a coach has had to go out and pick a quarterback up off of the street in order not to lose the team. And that's exactly what has happened here. They have Peterman, and the team in the locker room is so poisoned on Peterman. And how could you not be? The guy throws a pick pick sixes for breakfast. And it's pretty incredible that they have had to go to these lengths to pull in Derek Anderson. I would expect to see a relatively conservative game plan for the Bills. Even though there's familiarity between the offensive coordinator and Anderson doesn't have any chemistry with this receiving core. And I'm not sure it really matters. This receiving core for the Bills is so atrocious. He could have 5 weeks of reps with these guys and still not really, be able to produce much. And on the flip side, if you want to say something positive about the Bills, this defense, in my, based on the numbers, based on the eye test, this is clearly a top 5 defense in the NFL. not just the way they're playing, but the way they're able to kind of make key stops at certain times in games. They were absolutely in that game against the Texans thanks to their defense, and we saw them pull off a couple of improbable wins already this season thanks to defensive play. So my look here really is strong play on the under. I'm not worried about Andrew Luck and his sad set of weapons who continually drop the football, putting up too many points to take this thing over the total, going up against a relatively stout Bills team. And when it comes to the Colts defense, which is not good, but where they are the most vulnerable is passes in like the 11 to 20 yard or even deeper. The mid to deep range passing game is where they get burned when they get burned. And I'm not necessarily worried about Derek Anderson doing that. I think you're going to see much more run-heavy approach out of the Bills offense this week. And so under 43 seems like a no-brainer to me. This is going to be a game shortened by rushing attacks. If T.Y. Hilton looks like he's a no-go, I think the Colts are going to be probably leaning on their rushing attack maybe more this week than they have in weeks past. You don't want Andrew Luck throwing 50 passes week in, week out. So hopefully this is a short game. This is the kind of game you look up and it's in the midway through the fourth quarter when every other game is still at the end of the third. And we're like, this was a no-brainer. So under for me, and I can't really make an argument on either side here just because of the uncertainty with Anderson.
I hear that. Anthony L says, I don't like laying 7 points with the Colts, but they ain't scoring more than 10, meaning the Bills. Colts can get 24 and covered by 2 touchdowns. I think that under seems like a pretty shrewd move. What are you thinking here, Donnie?
You know what's interesting? Early in the week, I'm looking at this, and I have the same thought process as Mo. Like, man, as long as they can keep away from Nathan Peterman here, give me a veteran quarterback back there because Josh Allen isn't the end-all be-all at quarterback. He's still young. Give me a guy who's just going to be able to navigate out there. And I say, you know what? Oh, boy, I really like this. Good. Anderson's going to start. And as the week progressed, I'm saying to myself, well, it's not so much that you don't want the veteran quarterback there. I don't like the fact that the veteran was brought off the street just a couple weeks ago because it's not so much as saying he doesn't know the offense. He's an older quarterback, which you're telling me, from the summer all the way through, like he's really working out extremely hard, getting into the playbook, getting those repetitions. And he came in under the pretenses is, hey, look, just come in here on the sideline. Tell this young kid what he needs to do. You're never going to play. You're third on you're never going to be active. And then gets a phone call and then, hey, by the way, I need you to start this weekend. So, lace him up and let's get after it. That's what scares me because if it was just your normal backup quarterback who was a veteran coming in, I would love the Bills in this spot. But from a guy coming in like saying, let me check my family. Babe, I'm going to Buffalo. I will not play. We're going to cash some checks. This is a perfect scenario too. Babe, I got to start this Sunday, and I don't even know what I'm going to do in this game. I'm worried about that. I won't be betting this game, but I just wish it was a regular veteran quarterback who's been there maybe 32 or 33 and just not pulled off the street under the pretenses where he's not playing at all. So just a tough one for me.
A tough one. I agree completely. But the more I look at it, I do think Whale Capper's on to something with the under. Maya Marshall saying T.Y. Hilton has been cleared. He's playing. I was under the assumption that he was playing. Being very impressed with this Colts offense. Ebron is a beast. They rushed for 127 yards. But then Dom Ricci, with a very, very keen eye on his Jets, says Colts are pretty bad. Would have scored 0 points in the first half without turnovers by the Jets. Jets defense toyed with the Colts O-line. So I guess, I'm watching all these games at the same time. I guess, Donnie, was that what was happening? I guess I missed that. I thought that the Colts offense was rolling last week, but were they not rolling till late?
Well, I mean, it wasn't so much of that. They were gifted a couple things, but I mean, I wasn't over. It's T.Y. Hilton needs to be in that offense to be able to just provide something that says, look, guys, I'm fast. I can run downfield and get after it. As long as you have that element, that should open it up. But what has shown you with the Indianapolis Colts all year long that they actually want to do that anyway? They're more intermediate. They're more, I'm going to throw the ball 40 times, but keep it 5 to 6, 7 yard chunks and move it downfield. So that's just the way I see the offense right now. But you're right. Look, Andrew Luck has looked really good this year, and that's impressive moving forward for the Colts. I'm just not a big fan of the offense as it is right now.
Yeah, I hear that. Let's keep rolling right along. Another exciting marquee matchup for me. I'm very excited to see what these Vikings do at the Jets. Open Vikings -3, and then there was 3.5 on Tuesday, and now it's 3.5 across the board. If you might be too late backing the Vikings, I have not made a bet yet. I would much prefer it at 3. Total open at 47. On Tuesday, there was 47s. It was creeping up to 47.5. And then since then, it's made a change towards the under. Now it's 46s. The Vikings did not make it look easy beating the Cardinals 27-17. And we just saw what the Broncos did with the Cardinals. That is a bad sign. Latavius Murray ran 24 times for 155 yards. Thielen continued his magic. On the other side of the ball, Marcus May broke his thumb against the Colts. This is devastating to this secondary. They're hoping to get Trumaine Johnson back, but his status is unclear. If it's Morris Claiborne against a bunch of backups, Cousins should be able to pick them apart. Isaiah Crowell, questionable. Terrell Pryor, which kind of shocked me seeing him, is now doubtful. He had a pretty good game. He was invisible there for 3 weeks in a row, but had a good game last week. Vikings at Jets. I lean towards the Vikings, but the Jets have shown they're very valuable as a home dog over the last few years. Whale Capper, what are you thinking here, Vikings at Jets?
I played the Vikes off the opener at -3, thinking this is the right spot. It's going up. Get it now. So I'm holding the 3 ticket at, I think, -115. And I think it's, as the injury reports have kind of come in, I haven't really seen anything that has surprised me. The Jets secondary looks extremely depleted. I think Diggs and Thielen are going to be just monsters in those matchups. And Kirk Cousins is throwing the ball extremely well right now. He's seeing the field extremely well. He's making excellent decisions. I would expect that he can be surgical, even in a relatively windy situation. Donnie brought it up about Philly. Up and down the East Coast this week, it's going to be windy, windy, windy. And if we've seen something pretty reliable when it's windy at the Meadowlands, it is really, really, really tough on your offense to score points, to throw the ball deep, to make effective decisions in the kicking game. And so I look at a team that is clicking on offense, that is doing things at multiple levels of the field with the Vikings, and I'm feeling pretty confident that they're going to be able to put up, somewhere in the 20s in this game. And I think that the Vikings defense going up against a rookie quarterback in relatively windy conditions, kids from Southern California, we have yet to see, how he's going to be able to throw the ball 15, 20 yards down the field and, 20-mile-an-hour winds in the Meadowlands. This could get rough for Sam Darnold. And I think that the Vikings defense has found their swagger a little bit. You mentioned that last week they only win by 10 against a terrible Arizona team. A lot of that was born out of that weird kind of scoop and score by the Cardinals late. That felt like a Vikings easy win, easy cover the whole way to me. So I'm happy getting a relatively cheap price here on the Vikings. I think this team is for real. Maybe the only thing that I'm a little concerned about is they have New Orleans on deck. Pretty big spot next week for them. Huge in the kind of the complexion of the NFC overall. And so, if they're comfortably up late, maybe I'm a little worried about a backdoor. So that's why I grabbed 3 when it was available.
I hear that. I agree with that breakdown. Theodore McIntosh, though, says Jets have teeth. Cage says, like the Jets here at 3.5. And Crypto Boss, trap game of the week. Of course, everyone will take the Vikes. Vegas not giving away free money. What's your breakdown on this, Donnie?
Normally I would find a way to take the New York Jets in the situation. They had great situations the last 2 weeks, but this isn't a good one because you have to know how a team's going to attack another team. Look at the last 3 weeks. We're not talking about, the Drew Breeses of the world and the Patrick Mahomes and the Tom Brady's. Jacksonville, 377 in the air versus this Jets team. Denver Broncos, 344 in the air versus Jets team. Indianapolis, 301 in the air through this Jets team. And now you're looking at a secondary that's even more banged up. And, Thielen and Diggs are coming to town with a pretty good quarterback that's going to be able to deliver the football. Minnesota runs the football just out of the fact that we have to run the football here. So Dalvin Cook being out, he's been out just about the entire year. That's not a loss at all. Latavius Murray should be fine in this football game just to move the sticks, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, give him a run look. That's fine. Thielen and Diggs should eat in this football game. So you say, all right, Donnie, well, how about the Jets on the opposite side of the ball? Look at the way they've been playing on offense, 34 points, 42 points. Yes, I would agree there, but you're a little bit banged up now at running back. You have a rookie quarterback going against one of the all-time masterminds in point spread covering in Mike Zimmer, and you're going to say, look, you're already down Terrell Pryor. Jimmy said he had a good week last week. He's going to be out of this football game. Last year's leading receiver, Quincy Enunwa, he's not even suiting up. And your best wide receiver who's built on speed, has a hamstring injury. So now you're hamstrung, quote unquote, on your entire offense. You're going to have a defense with a defensive coordinator that should be able to put together a really good game plan against a banged up offense. And you have the perfect tonic for the Vikings. What do they want to do? Throw the football to their two wideouts. What are the Jets struggling with right now? Covering wide receivers. It's a pretty good matchup here for the Vikings. It will be Vikings for me. I think they can go on the road, even though they do have a look ahead situation. I think they can put away the Jets here. I think everything matches up pretty well for them here.
I hear that. It seems, listening to, like you're leaning towards the under if you were going to make a play on the total. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, I don't know if it would be. The Jets don't seem to be playing towards unders here, so I think they're going to come out and throw the ball all over the lot, but I think the Vikings are going to be able to return fire and put it up. 46 points in the NFL. I mean, I don't have a great feel for it, but I think the Vikings are going to get into that high 20s, low 30s in this game.
What about you, Whale Capper? You have any feel on the total?
Man, I've heard some people make some pretty strong cases for the under this week. People I respect have, pretty strong records in the NFL, have made good cases for the over. And with the wind in the Meadowlands, I've been burned too many times over my gambling life to place an over when there's anywhere close to 20-mile-an-hour winds in that stadium. It just wreaks havoc on especially a young player like Sam Darnold, who's not accomplished in the wind. Like, maybe he will end up being the best windy quarterback we've ever seen by the time it's all said and done, but he's got to prove it to me first. There's no way I'm getting involved in the total in this kind of situation. And it's, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like 10, 12, 15-mile-an-hour winds in the Meadowlands, that's like 20-mile-an-hour everywhere else. Just the way the stadium is shaped, it just wrecks things there. I'll never forget how, what was the game last year where Chiefs went to the Meadowlands to play the Giants? The Giants defense had completely quit on McAdoo. They were trying to get him fired. The Chiefs desperately needed to get right. They got all these weapons. Alex Smith is, still considered candidate for MVP. And I'm thinking, this is a beautiful spot to back this over. It is going to be so good. I couldn't wait I was looking for more outs to get more money down early in the week on that over. Sunday rolls around. 20-mile-an-hour winds, and I think the only completed downfield pass all game was like Travis Kelce threw like a gimmick pass or something like that, and I don't know, maybe the KC won 9-6 in overtime or something insane. It was just a dead play from kickoff.
Yep.
It was unbelievable, and that was all. And it was the wind was just completely wrecked everything that everyone wanted to do through the air. So, in that vein. Jets without Crowell, if this turns into a true ground game and a true precise middle short passing range, I think that plays into the Vikings' hands as well. And the Vikings defense and Zimmer in particular, there's a very specific way you beat these guys. And if you can get them to get off of their plan A and into whatever adjustments Zimmer has plan B, he has a very narrow kind of chest of adjustments. And so if you know what those adjustments will be, and you can kind of have your game plan, situated to take advantage of those, you can really, do nice things against this Vikings defense, as we saw the Rams do it, and we saw Philly do it late in that game, where they ended up coming up just short. So there are certain teams and certain coaches that know how to attack Zimmer and know how to get it done against this defense. I don't think the Jets are one of those teams, and I'm not really worried about laying the points on the road here with the Vikings.
I hear that. Great breakdown, guys. Let's move on to Texans at Jaguars. Open Jaguars -4. Then on Tuesday, we had some -4.5, some -5s. Now it's back to 4.5s and 4s. Total opened at 43. It was sort of all over the board. The market was all over the place on Tuesday. It's now settled at 41. The Texans were lucky to scrape by the Bills. And they may not have if Josh Allen had not have gotten hurt. And then the Jags were embarrassed against the Cowboys, 40-7. It was ugly. Bortles, 15 for 26, 149 yards. They rushed for just 65 yards. The more concerning thing was they just couldn't get any stops. Cowboys rushed for 206 yards on them. The Jaguars had a bunch of injuries, but only Hayden was the only defender that actually plays. The Jags will have a chip on their shoulder. I want to back them, but I don't know if I can trust them. Bortles looked terrible. When he went up against Kansas City, he was intercepted 4 times, and that's a terrible defense he did that to. J.J. Watt tied for the NFL lead with 7 sacks, all coming in the past 4 weeks. He should be in a nice spot here against the Jags. Fournette is going to be evaluated further. Does not look like he'll be playing, but that's, it's unclear. Yeldon did not practice Wednesday. Don't know what's going to happen with this running spot. And then I believe you guys were saying that they picked up Hyde today. So Hyde will probably be in the lineup. I want to back the Jags for a bounce back spot, but I don't know if I can. Why don't we start with you, Donnie? Texans at Jaguars.
Yeah, I mean, for coming into the season, if you're going to look at this game and say I'm going to give 4.5 to Houston, you probably think it's going to be a pretty good football game. Both these teams walking wounded coming in here. We do like to pick on Bill O'Brien. Something is completely broken at the quarterback situation. Maybe the quarterback is broke, ribs, whatever it is, sternum, bruised lung, hurt knee. It seems to be affecting him quite a bit at this point. But if we take a look at this game just on its overall edge here, what gives the Jacksonville Jaguars problems, it seems? If you're going to face a statue versus the Giants, that's easy. If you're going to face a statue like Tom Brady, that's easy. You're going to face, what was it, Bortles for the majority of the game before a hurt Marcus Mariota came in. That was easy. Sam Darnold, not really a runner. That was easy. And then all of a sudden you go on the road for back-to-back games against mobile quarterbacks and you get slayed. Well, you got another mobile quarterback coming in here. The only problem is who's going to score on both sides of the football? It's like a double-edged sword for me. I can't stand the way Houston is coached. But I almost want to take them in this environment because I can see both front sevens getting after both these quarterbacks. One can escape the pocket. I mean, Blake Bortles can run a little bit, but hey, he's not on the road in this. He's at home. You think he would rebound, and especially going on the road against two tough opponents with the Dallas Cowboys playing good football at home, and then you have Kansas City. I'm left in a lurch in this one. I really wanted to take Jacksonville all week long, but both of these teams are so injured. I can see it both ways. Sometimes I just want to lean on the points here and say maybe this is the week Deshaun Watson puts something together and that offense moves the football.
I hear that. He looked terrible last week, 15 for 25, 177
He looks bad all the
yards,
time. Yeah.
1 TD, 2 picks. But you're right. There's a ton of volatility with all these injuries. Sun Kim says slam the under. Good old Bill O'Brien will come through. What do you see? Do you feel any angles on this spot, Whale Capper?
Well, as a fan of football, I'm rooting for one of two things to happen. Either Bill O'Brien does something so stupid that he gets fired, or Blake Bortles looks so bad that they have to find a replacement, because I really think that both of these teams will be better and more entertaining to watch going forward if you find a new coach and a new quarterback, respectively. That said, when you break down a Jacksonville Jaguars game, I guess as long as Blake is there, I think we can categorize this team very accurately. If they get a lead, they can win. If they do not, they cannot. They are not capable of coming back from a deficit. We've seen it time and again this season. They can play from ahead like champs. The minute the going gets tough and they have to try to make up 7 points, you put a little bit more pressure on Blake Bortles, who's already not a very confident guy as it is. It all comes crumbling down. The guy makes mistake after mistake, and you just cannot count on them being able to come back from a deficit. And so when you're handicapping a Jaguars game, that's what you have to ask yourself first is, like, given the state of the Jaguars offense, can they score a couple, can they get a couple of scores early enough in this game that they can let their defense kind of get aggressive and take care of the lead and play downhill? And when you're talking about a Texans defense that's fine but not great, they generally look better in the first half when everybody's fresh. They don't have a lot of depth, so guys get tired and they end up falling apart towards the end of games. I don't see that the Jags are going to be able to get easy scores at the early part of this game. And so that's kind of talked me off of a spot that I would otherwise like to back them, because they've looked bad 2 weeks in a row on the road. They're back at home. They're playing a division opponent who they just destroyed, dominated, and owned last season. So, there's going to be some opportunity here in general for the Jags to get right. But given the potential for them to kind of, not get a nice lead early, I can't advocate laying points on this team right now. No way, no how.
I agree. Don Ricci saying Bortles night and day at home. Do you feel like at home in this situation he may be able to put something together?
I agree with night and day at home. I will say, though, that a lot of those home games where you have a nice sample size on him, they got leads early and their defense played downhill. They got, short fields. They had complementary rushing attack. They had an offensive line that afforded him time to kind of go through his progressions and make the right decision. None of that exists for him now. He is really, really put in a tight spot because they overemphasized stacking guys in the front on their first line, offensive line. It did not get him any weapons to throw the ball to. And a lot of those guys in the offensive line are hurt and will not be available in this game. And just that little bit of you up the pressure a little bit, and you got guys like Clowney and Watt going to be getting after him early in this game. This is one of those kind of games where if everyone was healthy on the O-line for the Jags, maybe that's the differentiating factor. They can give them enough time to get comfortable and get some confidence up early in the game. But with the walking wounded they're trotting out there in the trenches, this looks like trouble for me.
It does look like trouble. Cage says great spot for them off the losses, but not laying more than 3 with Jacksonville right now. Although D Bankroll, our man D Bankroll says Jags smash Houston. If they score early, they should cover. So at first he said they'd smash them, and then he started getting a little uncomfortable as we broke the game down. I love D Bankroll. I love all these cappers. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Let's keep rolling. Another marquee matchup. We broke this game down on Tuesday. And Donnie, let me say, I loved your breakdown of this game on Tuesday, talking about the Saints and how different they are in the Northeast. It was very, very interesting. It opened Ravens minus 2.5. Now there are some 3s on the board, still some 2.5s. Total opened at 50.5. Now mostly 49.5, 49s. Saints coming off the bye. They will have 2 weeks to prepare for a Ravens offense that's been struggling. I'm not sure if we have more information. If you guys have more information on Lattimore coming off a concussion, his status was unclear as of Tuesday. Also, Alex Collins continues to struggle, just 54 yards on 19 carries last week. Saints, I think, are going to have to run heavy this game. Ravens boast the number 1 defense in the league, and Drew Brees, this is the only team he's not beaten in his 18-year career, and I'm sure John Harbaugh has a lot of plans in place to keep it that way. Mark Ingram returned after the 4-game suspension, now got the Alvin Kamara 1-2 punch going. Meredith is getting healthier after major knee surgery last year. Traquan Smith coming off his best game of the season. Pete also becoming healthier. The Ravens have allowed the fewest points per game and the fewest yards per game in the NFL, also lead the league in sacks. Are the Saints going to have a very difficult time in Baltimore? Saints at Ravens. Why don't we start with you, Whale Capper? What are you thinking here?
I can't wait for this one. This is going to be an amazing game to watch. I'll just say, my strongest look of the week, as far as I can tell you, is the under in this one. I think it's about 6-7 points too high. Part of that is because of the weather and because of the wind. Part of that is because of Drew Brees is outside and he's playing on grass. And there's the Ravens defense, top 2, top 3 in the league. They are now that they have all their pieces back, they can pretty much do it all. This unit is totally legit. I think you're probably talking about a Ravens team that is going to win the AFC North. They have a key win over Pittsburgh. If they don't drop those 2 weird ones to Cincinnati and Cleveland, I think people are probably talking about, are the Ravens a Super Bowl contender? And they're going up against an NFC team that we've seen a lot in controlled circumstances this year. We've seen this Saints team play in domes a ton, especially like the big games, the games that everyone's watching. These have been in domes. And we know that this team is constructed for that type of setting, but they're versatile enough that they can shift and have a little bit different approach and kind of utilize Ingram more, utilize Kamara in the short, efficient passing game a little more. So the Saints are going to be an interesting team to see if they can, overcome some of the challenges of playing outdoors against, a top tier defense and get enough on the board to win the game. I feel like this is a tight, field goal decides this one in the kind of the 23-20 type of range. Could go either way. I think there's line value probably on the Saints. We expected this to see all season long. We expected to see this open as about a pick'em, including the look ahead last week. We have seen in general, Vegas has been adjusting lines about 2 points for teams coming off a bye. And so seeing this open as, Ravens minus 2.5 was like a little eye-opening. Like, wow, okay, I guess we're not going to get the pick 'em we expected here. And I was kind of looking forward, like maybe, Ravens at a pick 'em might be nice. Now it's 2.5. Okay, so that kind of changed my perspective a little bit on the right way to attack this, and I'm going under instead of backing the home team here. But that's a wild stat about Drew Brees having never beat the Ravens, only team in the NFL he doesn't have a win against. That's kind of crazy, and he's definitely on a record-setting. This is his kind of year of collecting the accolades and getting a lot of attention for that, and probably in the MVP discussion, maybe not fairly in the MVP discussion because of all that stuff. So it'll be interesting to see if he can keep that momentum going, and it'll be interesting to take away from this game whether the NFC is better than the AFC, because I had the expectation coming into the season, but as I look at my current ranking and how I grade these teams now, a lot of my top 10 teams are AFC teams. So not exactly how I expected the season to shape up, and this will tell us a lot kind of going forward in terms of handicapping cross conference matchups.
It will. Angelo's FIFA saying the same thing as you about the record-breaking season for Breeze. Tomarino saying Saints are overrated off the big game against Washington. Vegas Stacker, Ravens best bet. Money Gang Sports saying I got Saints +3. Pete Salvano saying this is another game the books are nervous about. They know public money will come in on the Saints, but a lot of sharp guys like Baltimore, so they haven't moved it for the most part. Donnie, can't wait to hear your breakdown. I loved it on Tuesday. Saints at Ravens.
Yeah, it should be a little bit windy down there. So there's one thing I do want to have is one of the greatest kickers of all time on my side in his home stadium when it's windy. That'll be a nice advantage to have. But you know what else I don't want to have? Is a team that's built more on, throwing the spots. Look, Drew Brees is a really good quarterback, really finesse. If you printed out, you had a 3D printer and said, I need a quarterback that plays really well in a dome because his arm's not that strong, but he's real accurate, Drew Brees comes right out of the printer. Now you're going to throw him in an environment against a lethal defense, and I think you're getting a little bit of value here. Let's not forget, only 2 home games this year so far by the Ravens, who are one of the better home teams in football. One game they held a team to about 150 yards on offense, and then the Denver Broncos they held to under 300 yards and smashed both of those teams. They're coming off at Pittsburgh, divisional game, at Cleveland, divisional game, and at Tennessee, another physical team, and lost one of those games to Cleveland, which I think they should have won that game. But now you're getting them back home away from almost a month and a half, getting back into their environment, surviving. Going to be a pretty raucous atmosphere out here, and I think the Saints are getting a lot of respect from the odds makers to keep this line at 2.5 and not push it to 3. But everything the Ravens do is exactly what you want to go up against with Drew Brees. You want to get a pass rush, they have it. You want to slow down the running game because now the addition, getting back Mark Ingram from suspension, you already know they have Alvin Kamara. You can shut that running game down and let them lean on a precision passing game that's built on timing with a little bit of wind that can throw it off here. I think the Ravens can stretch that Saints defense. I think they can move the football here. I like the Ravens. It's either Ravens or nobody in this game, but I think you're getting a little bit of value because they haven't been in home so long, and you're seeing games that might be a little bit tighter out there. People just see they lost to Cleveland on the road. If you have 3 away games in a row and you win 2 of them, that's a pretty damn good job in the NFL, especially when most of those are, all 3 of those are AFC opponents. I think you're getting a little bit of value here at home with the Ravens. I think they can pull ahead and win this game, comfortably. I don't want to say 14 points, double digits, but they can get this done by a touchdown here.
And what do you think about Whale Capper's move towards liking the under?
Look, when you have windy conditions out there and one team that plays super kick-ass defense, you would expect this. Well, the Ravens aren't going to go into this game and say, what we're going to do today? Let's just air it out all game long in the wind. We need to go toe-to-toe with the New Orleans Saints. No. Keep the football, beat them up, get a pass rush, keep Drew Brees off the field. The last thing the Ravens want to do or their tempo is going to be is say, we want to throw it 45 times to keep up with Drew Brees. Their game plan should be exactly the way it was the last 3 weeks. Slow it down versus Pittsburgh. Slow it down in Cleveland. Slow it down in Tennessee and play good defense. It plays right into an under.
Yeah, I'm starting to like it more and more. Great breakdown, guys. A lot of people liking the Ravens here in our chat, and very few people backing the Saints here. This will be one of the marquee matchups without a doubt. And let's roll on to another one. Cowboys at Redskins. Man, the Cowboys got me. I pretty much faded them every week so far this year. At home, they're undefeated. On the road, they haven't won. I am going to back the Redskins here. I feel like this matchup suits Washington, but the trends are not working in my favor. The Cowboys have won 8 of the last 10 meetings with the Redskins, including 5 straight in Washington. Also, in their past 8 games following a win, the Redskins are 1-7. Dallas found its rhythm on offense. They were very, very impressive against the Jags, but they still rank 29th in the NFL in yards per game, and they have struggled on the road against a dual-threat quarterback, but I don't even know if we can consider Alex Smith still a dual-threat quarterback. He has 60 yards on 27 carries so far this year, being sacked 12 times in 5 games. I want to back the Redskins here. I feel like their key defensive players, the guys that bring them the most glory, are healthy and can stop Dak Prescott. It opened Redskins -1. Then there were 1.5s and -2s on Tuesday. Now just -1s. The total opened at 42. Now 41.5s across the board. Donnie, why don't we start with you here? Cowboys at Redskins.
Yeah, first question I have is where are the points coming from here for both of these teams? Because these two teams play almost exactly the same way. They want to hand the football off. They want to roll their quarterback out. They want to use intermediate routes. And now you're seeing a lot of banged up injuries. If you're the Washington Redskins, you need Chris Thompson in this game. You need a healthy AP in this game. You're down 2 wide receivers right off the bat before you even suit up. And then, oh, yeah, I know Jimmy likes this. The minute you see that green light on Sean Lee at middle linebacker, all those numbers pop up about how well they play on defense. They didn't miss Sean Lee even for a beat last week versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. One of the few games they actually made Jacksonville quit, I believe, in that football game, which was real interesting to watch. Early in the week, I set up right away. So, Jimmy, Washington right here. It's a great spot. Dallas with that huge home victory. Now going on the road. We've seen this environment where the Redskins play well at home. But now when you see the injury reports come out and really how banged up they are and how styles make fights, they're going to run each other into a brick wall. Same thing, you're going to want to give Zeke Elliott the ball. You're going to want to give Adrian Peterson the ball. You're going to run play action, but not play action to throw a 60-yard bomb. It's more play action to dump it off to your running back in the flat to keep the chains moving. You're going to get windy conditions. Both of these regimes know each other well. It's a low total, 41.5. But both of these teams lend themselves to be like a 17-13, 21-17 type ball game is what I see going to be played here because both of these teams not built on big plays, and neither one of these teams even try to make big plays, it seems like.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I've also, as much as I hate the Cowboys, and I mentioned this a lot of times on the show, Martinelli is absolutely incredible. He gets so much out of his players year in and year out, and Van Der Esch has become one of my favorite players in the league. I've been extremely impressed with, as you stated, they've handled themselves without Sean Lee. My man Scotty Rock Forever says Cowboys +1. Do not overthink it. Do not, I repeat, do not trust Alex Smith. What are you thinking here, Whale Capper?
Okay. This one's really tough. I didn't make a play, but I have one in the queue for halftime. I agree with Donnie's take that this was an underlook. I really had this circled and I was like, man, I hope they open this at like 44, 45. That's going to be just a beautiful spot to grab an under. Opening at 42, it was like, damn. So whoever the lines makers were onto this one before I got there. And most of the angle on the under for me is the Dallas Cowboys offense has been extremely poor on the road. And it's not just the scheme and what they're calling, but like for whatever reason, like they're just not getting the push on the offensive line. They're not getting the protection from Dak. Dak's looking flustered. You know, there's lots of different factors that are playing into this, but the offense for the Cowboys on the road, I don't know, 14, 17 points seems like their ceiling. And so it was a decent, hope to look for the under. And I get what you're saying about the Redskins. The Redskins are a really tough team to kind of pin down this season. You look at their results and they're doing a very consistent zigzag. You're not getting consistent motivation and consistent level of effort from all of their players that you need to get a win any given week. They're not coming every week. They're coming every other week. And we saw them get a win last week in pretty lucky fashion. In fact, they almost gave that one away to Carolina. And as someone who has a vested interest in Carolina coming in under their win total, I was very, very happy to see the Redskins hold on to that for that win last week because it's getting a little warm in the Carolina under tent right now. But all this aside, the Redskins are not a good second half team. I don't know if it's a Gruden family thing this year that we're seeing this kind of trend emerge, but whatever they're doing adjustment wise at halftime is not working. So I'm queued up here to look for Cowboys to try to come back and make this a competitive game if they're down at halftime. If you're backing either one of these teams with any kind of high confidence, best of luck to you.
I like that. I like the breakdown. I'm very interested in this game. I don't like taking these very low totals. As Donnie has seen, they've got me right in the old drink hole. But I do agree with you guys that under does seem appealing. I still think I'm going to hammer the Redskins this week as I do.
I hope they're up 20. I really hope they're up 21-0 for you at halftime because I think they can hang on and cover. But I'm going to be scooping Dallas -3 or whatever the halftime line is for sure.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Well, I will be sending you a message around halftime, Whale Capper, because I get enormous...
Real quick question for Donnie. Either of these teams going to challenge Philly for the NFC East?
When it's all said and done, I don't think so. Like, unless, the Eagles just continue to get more injury depleted. I think when they match up head to head against all these teams, the Eagles, that is, I just think they're a better team than both of them, just from the quarterback play that you actually get. But look, the Eagles are banged up. I mean, you're looking at one or two more injuries. Ron Darby goes down, and then all hell breaks loose on the Eagles. So it's a pretty thin line as opposed to the smoking it was last year.
Because they're plus money to win the East at a couple shops right now. I'm surprised.
Yeah, they got a tough schedule. They got a tough schedule on the way out, but I think they handle this week, and then you don't even know what you're gonna get at Jacksonville on a neutral site in 2 weeks. Then they have the bye. Everybody anticipating, a Le'Veon Bell move or somebody to soup up like they did last year, getting Jay Ajayi to carry the rest of the season. I still think they're the better football team in the NFC East, though.
Yeah, I've got the Eagles to win that division from the beginning of the year. Let's move on to Rams at 49ers. The boys showed a lot of heart. Shocked everyone keeping it close against Green Bay and put a smile back on our face that I expect to be washed off completely by the end of this game. I think the Rams are going to smash the 49ers in the mouth. I think Beathard is going to get swallowed up by this D-line. I think Aaron Donald's going to eat him up. And I don't like saying any of this. I think that was a complete mirage that happened. I don't expect to see it this week. I also have a lean towards the under. I don't like taking road teams at such a big favorite line, but I have this sneaking feeling that they are going to beat the 49ers badly. The Rams looked human in their 23-20 win at Denver. Marcus Peters was active against the Broncos, but this secondary has not looked good without Aqib Talib. Back to the Niners. Goodwin looked so good. Breda and Mostert are looking good. But this team has no pass rush, a questionable secondary. Warner and Foster are playing great. I have that. Maybe it's this Mohamed Joma saying 49ers cover. I can understand after everybody's watching that Packers game that they think this 49ers team could cover. I just have this feeling that they're going to get punched in the mouth. Why don't we go with you, Whale Capper, over in the West Coast? What do you think about my fear and my feeling here, and what do you like in this game?
Well, working in your favor, this is the Rams' third straight road game. It's tough to go on the road 3 straight weeks. Granted, the Rams haven't had to travel a ton. They've gone to Seattle, back to LA, Denver, back to LA, and now San Francisco, back to LA. This is not covering the country and really putting miles on your team. So yeah, I don't know that it's going to be super impactful. I worry a little bit about the Niners on a short week here and coming off of a game where it felt like they should have won. That could have some motivational issues for your team in the first half of this one, even though this is a divisional matchup. And, we were expecting this to be kind of set the tone for the future of who's going to win the NFC West here between the Niners and the Rams. Like, 2 young teams, 2 young quarterbacks, 2 young coaches who know what the hell they're doing. Like, let's see these guys battle this out. It was supposed to be the primetime game. They flex it out because we lose Jimmy G. I've kind of changed my tune a little bit on what to make of CJ Beathard. I'll stop calling him CJ Beathard because that's disrespectful, I guess. But from seeing him last year and thinking he was clearly a bottom 5 in the league quarterback, shouldn't have a starting position. I like what Shanahan has done, coaching him up a little bit, getting him more comfortable, and the types of plays they're calling are they're playing into his strength, and I think that's huge. And so I think Beathard now kind of clearly like middle of the pack quarterbacks in the NFL. And I don't know, I like Jimmy G a lot, but it's not a 6-point drop off from Jimmy G to Beathard anymore, which is kind of how they've adjusted the power numbers at least, and haven't really kind of come back on those power numbers. So, there's line value in the Niners at home at this big of a spread. And if it weren't for the short week and having just got their hearts broken on national television, I'd probably back the Niners here. I can make a pretty strong case for the over. I don't have a play currently, but if I was going to add a play this week and I was looking real hard at the card and what I don't have covered, the over here is starting to pop a little for me. I feel like pretty clearly the offensive approach that we're seeing out of the Rams is the very, very top of the league. McVay and Shanahan are both extremely, extremely talented play callers. I can see both offenses looking pretty darn good here. Anyone remember how many points were scored last time we saw Shanahan host McVay in San Francisco? Something like 80, right?
Was that the low?
It was 41, 30.
Was that the high scoring one? Or was that the Monday night game, to open the season? One of the years?
It was
the Chip Kelly game.
One
of
those
was
was
early on.
Years ago. That was Chip Kelly versus Jeff Fisher. Last year's Thursday night football game with Shanahan and McVay had 80 points, and it was I think the total was lined around 40 or something in that, and they doubled it. So these, and we've seen actually a couple of examples of when you have McVay going up against another competent play caller, points are absolutely no problem in these Rams games. How many points were scored in that Rams Seahawks game? That one flew over the total. That was a no-doubter. This kind of feels like the same sort of game here with if we see the same performance we saw out of Behard against the Packers. And by the way, the Packers got 33 against this Niners defense. And Mike McCarthy called a pretty atrocious game. And still, they still managed 33 points there. Granted, a lot of that is strictly on the shoulder of Aaron Rodgers, but still, it's, if Packers are getting 33, what are the Rams scoring here? 40 something probably. So, I'm looking for an over in this one. I don't really think they get 40 points, but I can see Rams comfortably getting into the 30s here and the Niners getting into the 20s. And so I'll take the over here, if anything.
I like that breakdown. Over the last few weeks, and we talked about it last week, Beathard knows Shanahan's play calling inside and out. That first week, he looked really good. That second week, at the end of the first week, he took those one enormous hit, but 2 heavy hits. That second week, he was panicking, throwing the ball too quickly because of those hits. We were sure that Shanahan was going to show him the tape. And clearly that happened because he looked much more composed and much more calm before the rush got to him. Donnie, what are you thinking here? Rams at 49ers.
Yeah, I hope the 49ers are going to be able to return fire because this should be a pretty easy total to hit because if you watched last week, it was pretty apparent in watching the Denver Broncos. I mean, look, they ended up with 20 points, but they were pretty anemic on offense, just making awful decision after awful decision against not a very good Los Angeles Rams team. The one thing you do like also, we're talking about 82, 83 degrees, light wind. We're not going to have, mid-20s or Seattle, a little bit of murkiness and rain after all those back-to-back road games, now having the third game. From a side perspective here, it's almost like the Rams, to me, are a little bit bored at this point. You open up the season, you're favored by 6, then you're favored by 12, 4 straight games by 7. This is double digits. And look, it doesn't gambling or no gambling. NFL players and teams know about the opposition. When you line up, the same thing like Alabama looks up every week, say, dude, we're favored by 35 this weekend. That's like the equivalent of being favored by 10 in the NFL. Like, this team can't touch us. Let's just go stretch this team, get out of here. As long as San Francisco returns fire, the Rams will be engaged. It was at some point last week versus Denver, where Denver just outside of a couple plays late third quarter and a meaningless drive, not meaningless to a lot of people trying to cover the spread, that they were actually in business and ready to go. If you push the buttons on the Rams, they'll return fire and continues because you watch the games the previous weeks. Minnesota kept coming back. The Rams would stretch it. Seattle was airing it out. It seemed like every time the red zone popped up, the Rams were in it because they were forced to return fire. As long as San Francisco can put up a fight early, the Rams are going to be able to get into the 30s in this game. It should be fun to watch, but from a side perspective covering the 10, it just seems like the Rams say, hey, we're up 14, we're up a little bit. I don't even worry about it. Let them score on the last drive of the game to get within that number. It just seems like the MO right now, but I do like the over at 52.
Yeah, great breakdown, guys. I really hear that. I just have this fear. I have this fear that the Rams are just going to do whatever they want against this 49ers team.
Their offense is something to watch, though, man. I mean, everybody's wide open every play, and then you hand it off to Gurley where you're watching the game like he could take it to the house every single time he gets the football. It's pretty fun to watch.
It is, and even without Cooper Kupp, they're going to be able to do a lot of damage offensively. Let's keep rolling. We have 2 games left on the card. The Sunday nighter, Bengals at Chiefs. Opened at Chiefs -6. Then they were -6s and just that on the board. And then the 5.5s have just creeped in recently. Total opened at 58.5. On Tuesday, there were 58.5s, 59s. They're no longer 59s. It's between 58.5 to 57.5. To me, I think this total is just too high. I know the Chiefs have no defense, but I'm really leaning towards the under here. The Bengals lost again to the Steelers. They were not able to break this Steelers curse that they have. Mixon had a subpar game. Dalton still is playing well. Nick Vigil went down against the Steelers, expected to be out for 2 weeks. This Bengals team defensively ranked 29th in the NFL, allowing 409.2 yards per game. Their pass defense is suspect. I still feel maybe the numbers aren't telling me this. I just looking at this total. Should it be as high as it was for the Chiefs-Patriots game? I know it's not quite there, but should it be? I'm not sure if it should be. John Ross could return after missing the past 2 weeks. He will help. Both teams have started games very quickly so far this year. Bengals have outscored their opponents 45-17 in the first quarter. The Chiefs are even better, 65-19 in the first quarter. Donnie, why don't we start with you here? Bengals at Chiefs.
Yeah, look at both of these teams. If you look at the Cincinnati Bengals last week, and this is the tale we're going to play into here, they both did end up losing, but one team was at home with a bone-crushing loss where it's going to be tough to get over from your division rival. Now you got to go on the road and play in one of the more hostile environments in the NFL. Let's take a look at Kansas City, who was undefeated, came into Foxborough, and went toe-to-toe in a tough environment and almost won that football game. Looking at the quotes after the game, Cincinnati devastated, but you got a sense from Kansas City going, you know what? We were undefeated in here. We took them to the wire. We're going to be just fine. That was one of those measuring stick games to say, all right, let's take on the big boys in their house and see if we can get it done. This has all the makings to me, and especially against a Cincinnati team that can't stop anybody, it seems, through the air, unless you're the Miami Dolphins, where your quarterback actually doesn't have a throwing arm for the football game, just wasn't released out to the public. Every other game, they've got torched. I don't see it anything different. I think Kansas City is in a great spot here at home to win this game by 7 points or more.
And do you have a feel on the total?
With Kansas City games, to be honest, Jimmy, like there's, 50, 55, 60, 65. You're looking at a team that plays very little defense and there's no resistance on the opposite side. It's like Andy Reid is dialing it up from long distance and saying, let's just have fun and see how high we can go on the scoreboard. As long as you're going to get some good weather, which I don't think there's going to be bad weather, you're hanging numbers in the 50s. They're just climbing all over those Kansas City. So lean over just because the simple fact is, I don't think either of these teams can stop anybody against the pass.
I hear that. Well, Capper, can't wait to hear your breakdown of the Sunday nighter Bengals at Chiefs.
I think that was a really well framed, really well framed setup there by Danny. Beautiful, beautiful framing. You had the Chiefs lose, but it was a good loss. Honestly, whoever had the ball last in that game was going to win. And the Chiefs can walk out of that. They can walk out of Foxborough, one, recognizing that the hardest part of their schedule is behind them. They've played 4 of their 6 games on the road. They're 5-1, and they came, a play or 2 away from beating the sitting AFC champs. That has got to be a confidence-boosting win. And on the flip side, the soul-crushing loss for the Bengals against the Steelers. The Steelers really know how to rip their heart out, and they did it in pretty impressive fashion on Sunday, waiting till the very last drive to really show that their offense could, just have whatever they wanted against that defense. And I think that in general, the Kansas City defense looked like frauds to me. I mean, the Cincinnati defense looks like frauds to me. I think that the Kansas City defense is weak, but they are relatively frisky in the passing game, surprising. The way the Patriots really kind of dominated them, besides the fact that they had Gronk, who is, impossible to defend, and they deployed Gronk in a way that we haven't seen the Patriots deploy Gronk to this point in the season. they were winning it in the trenches. They were really forcing Kansas City off the ball. They were opening up gashing running lanes for Sonny Michel and James White and even Kenyon Barner. Who knew that guy still had pop in his legs? But it was an impressive kind of physical performance from the Patriots offense that dictated their ability to get points against the KC defense. I don't think that Cincinnati has that in them, to be honest with you. I think Cincinnati is going to try to attack the Chiefs in the way that the Chiefs are a little bit stronger on defense than people realize, and I think it's going to be a tough primetime spot for Andy Dalton. And I've seen enough games of Andy Dalton in primetime to know that the baseline expectation here is probably about 0 touchdowns and 3 picks for Andy Dalton, and so. If you're giving Kansas City short fields on top of the fact that their offense is just clicking beautifully right now, I think they pretty much win this one going away. And I could very well see a narrative after this game coming out where it's like, boy, that was Kansas City contenders, Cincinnati pretenders. I mean, this is the kind of game where you put Cincinnati into the spotlight in primetime, and people realize that. A lot of their wins to this point of the season were a little bit suspect.
Yeah, the chat completely agreeing with you guys. The whole chat on the over, the whole chat on the Chiefs. Yeah, that's dangerous.
So you're telling me parlay a Cincinnati money line with the under. Got it. Done.
Yep, this is your anchor play. Put the Chiefs in the over in all 16 of your parlays this weekend. Don't worry about it.
Oh, it's funny. I love it. Great breakdown, guys, of the Sunday Nighter, which moves us to the Monday Nighter. Very interesting market moves. Open Falcons -4. When Donnie and I were together on Tuesday, it was -6. It's now back to 4s and 3.5s. Total opened at 54, now mostly 54.5. The Falcons injuries, and I get it. I take a lot of shit for saying Falcons. I apologize. Falcons.
I have no idea what team you're talking about.
The Falcons will be without Devontae Freeman. They'll be without Matt Bryant. They also lost 2 key receivers in that game. Calvin Ridley, Mohamed Sanu. It just doesn't stop. We know Deion Jones, Keanu Neal, Ricardo Allen are all gone for the Falcons. But the Falcons keep playing good football and battling, and that's what Matt Ryan is able to do in the Dome. On the Giants side of the things, it was an embarrassing game against the world champion Eagles. Olivier Vernon is back. Eli Apple seems to have got his shit together. It's just that this defense can't get off the field, and that's how you take away studs like Vernon, is keep him on the field for 40 minutes. During the 3-game losing streak, Eli Manning keeps looking worse and worse and worse. Now, from a comedic point of view, it's great. We can tell jokes. I can talk about how he's going to be the worst player in the history of the Hall of Fame, and we get laughs. But that's a big city, and the Giants have a lot of fans, and they must be smashing their head into every table that's in front of them while they're watching him play. One bright spot for the Giants has been Saquon Barkley. He is an absolute beast and a joy to watch. Falcons -3.5. I like the Falcons here, but in my parlay, I did cheat the spread. I got it at a nice spot. I did cheat the spread. Giants +10.5 at -250 as part of my 4-game parlay. I also, even though the Falcons have so much trouble on defense, I have some interest in the under. I can't wait to hear you guys break this game down. We'll start with you, Whale Capper. Monday Nighter, Giants at Falcons.
Well, I agree with a lot of what you said there. The Giants are a Teddy Bridgewater away from being contenders in the NFC, in my opinion.
Wow.
The fact that the Jets signed Teddy off the street instead of the Giants going out and getting him as the understudy and potential replacement to Eli is head scratching. There's a lot of the Giants moves and a lot of what John Mara and company have done over the last handful of years have been, have really set the Giants back as a franchise, in my opinion. And, all to the benefit of Donnie's Eagles. You got 3 owners that don't know how to, deal with roster construction in today's NFL in your division. So congratulations to the next 10 NFC East titles to the Philadelphia Eagles. But the Giants, they can still perform well offensively, as we saw against they were able to rack up yards against that Eagles defense in impressive fashion. They just couldn't score points because of the sloppy quarterback play. I would say, you see a total like 54 in this dome. I'm taking the over every time. I don't care what the injuries are. I don't care if Eli Manning can't throw the ball deep particularly well anymore. This is a defense on the Atlanta side of the ball that can tackle no one. There's rumors Michael Vick's going to be in the house, and they're going to have a blackout in the crowd. Everyone wearing black shirts, and in the Falcons in their black gear. And if Michael Vick's there, like, slot that guy in as safety, man. See if he can play, because the guys they're trotting out there now to play in the secondary, they can't tackle, they can't cover. And I got a feeling that you're going to see a pretty impressive day out of the likes of both Beckham and Shepard, and the tight end. Hopefully, Ingram is healthy and back in this one, and he's contributing as well. And then you add Barkley to the mix. I think the Giants can get into the high 20s pretty comfortably. Maybe even the 30s. And the Atlanta, we see that this team was built for this, this field, this stadium. And in prime time, I think Matt Ryan puts on a show, and they can neutralize the parts of the Giants defense that are threats, and they should comfortably score as well. I feel like we're going to see a redux of what we saw in Bucks Falcons in this stadium, in Bengals Falcons in this stadium, in Saints Falcons in this stadium. This is, anytime you hang a total in the low 50s and Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta this season, including the Super Bowl, I got a feeling I'm going to have an over ticket in my pocket.
Good breakdown. I hear all of that. It makes a lot of sense. Donnie, can't wait to hear your breakdown of the Monday Nighter, Giants at Falcons.
It's an interesting one, to say the least. Sometimes I'm rooting a little bit more against the New York Giants, not because they're a divisional opponent of the Eagles, but just, man, is it going to be fun Tuesday morning if they get shelled, and then you see the New York headlines really open it up as the season is basically all for naught. You have the owner taking shots at the wide receiver. You have the wide receiver's dad taking shots back at the owner. The wide receiver's talking about, forget about the game. He's talking about how much he doesn't like water and why he would rather have an IV at halftime. It is an awesome mess in New York, where if it goes really badly Monday night, it might just explode. But getting back to the game itself, styles make fights here. If we could just somehow max protect for Eli, if we can just not let Vic Beasley get a pass rush on Eli every single play and he stands up, there should be time to throw and not much resistance in the back end. It's a really big deal. Evan Ingram is, not a top 5 tight end in the NFL just yet, but he has the capabilities to open up everything over the middle. When you're talking about 2 safeties that are already down for the Atlanta Falcons, he's going to be a problem if he's healthy, just running and splitting those safeties, which lets Sterling Shepard on the outside and Odell Beckham on the outside operate. The only thing I don't want to see happen in this football game is, if you're the New York Giants or you're betting it over, is for Pat Shermer to almost outsmart himself and say, boy, we got Saquon Barkley. We can't block that well. Let's just try to keep, the other team off the field and run the football. No, you have a secondary now that you can finally exploit, as long as you keep your quarterback upright and go downfield and take chunk plays off, which is pretty rare for the Giants. If you go back over on the Atlanta side of the football and offense, if you can get Ridley lined up and Sanu lined up in this football game to go with Julio Jones, they'll put up points left and right in this one. As long as you just get some competent offensive play calling on both sides, there should be no way that these teams don't at least play both of them into the high 20s. I just don't want Pat Shermer to say, boy, we have a really good running back. We're going to give the ball 25 times for 132 yards and control the clock. You'll get beat that way, because Atlanta's going to score on your defense. Go toe-to-toe with this football team. Keep Eli upright, and Odell Beckham Jr. should have 7 catches for 182 yards and 2 scores in this game. If not, get rid of your entire offensive set.
That is a great breakdown. Great breakdown, you guys. It's such a treat to get to work with you guys every Friday. It truly is. Whale Capper, thank you so much for joining us. We have a bunch of cappers here, and we can't do this show without these great cappers joining us in the chat, giving us their insights and being a part of the show. It means so much. Whale Capper, will you give them your love and your best and say goodbye to all of our SBR followers that are watching this video now and throughout the weekend?
Without a doubt, thank you guys so much for tuning in live. This is super fun to get instant feedback from people and kind of have to defend your plays. It makes you better as a handicapper, and I'm sure that you guys in the chat who are getting this process here will help us all kind of make more money as the season goes on. So it's valuable, and this was time well spent. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
We love having you, Whale Capper, on this show every Friday. And Donnie, my man, it's always a treat to roll with you. Would you put a bow on this bad boy and send us into the weekend, my friend?
Yes, absolutely. Look, it's always fun to come here. And even as cappers, like Whale Capper said it there, Jimmy says it, as much as we think we know it all up here and we're talking, trust me, the points that come out where we're on the fence on a couple plays and you say, you know what, Whale Capper really said something that made some point. Let me look into this football game. Or Jimmy's looking at a total and over-under that I wasn't even looking at. So you know what, that makes some sense. That's the whole point of this football show. It's not about giving you a pick on every single game. It's just information and knowledge going back and forth. You say, you know what, I never thought about it in that football game, and let me take a look at it. So that's what we're here for. As always here on the Audible, Tuesdays and Fridays, catch up. And by the way, Jimmy, I am going to send down this world-famous placard here that I still have sitting here. You can put that on your back wall for some of your shows so we can have some fun. But we'll get out of here on Friday, the extended director's cut. Always a pleasure, gentlemen. We'll catch up again next week. Win those tickets this weekend for sportsbookreview.com, the NFL home right here on the Audible, Tuesdays and Fridays. Have a good weekend, folks.